My mom used to always say, if you have a pet who's always treated with nothing but love and they take a dislike to someone, pay attention. Join me as I share my chilling true paranormal experiences. I'll never forget the first time I saw a ghost. Have you ever seen Bigfoot? I've had some strange encounters, and I've seen some things I can't explain. But one thing is for sure, the paranormal is real. Good versus evil. Are we alone in the universe? Every story here is true. There are no better judges of character than animals and young children. Today, I share an experience I had with my dog, Desiree, who was an Australian Shepherd, and she's been gone 31 years now. Smartest dog I ever knew. The kindest, sweetest dog who loved everyone. When I would take Desi on walks, we'd be gone over an hour because anytime she passed a yard where kids were playing, she had to go play. So all the neighborhood kids knew her, and by neighborhood, I mean like within about, I don't know, three quarters of a mile radius around my house. It's a lot of kids. She never had an issue with any children. She loved them all. Now, fast forward, and Desiree is now like about 8 or 9 years old, and I'm in my mid-20s. And we had a family move in 2 houses down from us. And they had several children who ranged in age from, I think, about 8 to about maybe 17, 18 years old. One of these was a little boy who, at the time they moved in, he was like around 11. Every time this kid walked or rode his bike in front of my house, Desiree would be throwing herself at the front door, barking and snarling, and we'd be yelling at her. She wasn't a reactive dog at all. If someone would knock, she'd get up and go to the door. She wouldn't be barking and barking. You know, this kid, there was something about him that just set her off. This went on for about 3 or 4 years. And I would yell at poor Desi, my mom would yell at her, my dad would yell at her, and it didn't matter. Every time that kid went anywhere near our house, our dog would go ballistic. And that was the only time. Fast forward now, and this boy is now 14 years old, 14, 15. And still, every time he went by our house, we would know it was him because Desi would just go nuts. 2 of our neighbors that lived across the street from us were sisters-in-law. And they lived on the same side of the street with one house between them that belonged to someone else. And so I was really close with one of the women and also with the people who lived in the house between the 2 houses. And I didn't know the other lady very well at all. She was a little bit older. She lived alone. The only thing I can tell you is she had the most beautiful rose garden. And she was really nice. You know, they all were. We had great neighbors growing up. It was a great neighborhood. Well, one morning, I'm puttering around. It was summertime, and I was attending grad school at the time, but I was home for the summer. So I was basically on summer vacation. And I wake up, and my mom's like, get up, get up, get up. And I'm like, what is it? What is it? She says, there are all these police around, all these cars. They're all across the street. Something horrible must have happened. And I go look out our front living room window that overlooked most of our street there, our block. And sure enough, the street was just covered in cop cars and detectives. And there was even a news crew out there. And they were all swarming around that little old lady's house. And I was like, oh no. And my first thought was she passed away in the house. And, her sister-in-law found her because they would, kind of take care of each other, check on each other. They saw each other every single day. They were really close. Yeah, her sister-in-law was the one who found her, unfortunately, but she didn't just pass away in her home. Uh, it was really horrible. Really, really horrible. What happened was um, they found out later through evidence, through fingerprinting, and whatever else they collected, that two individuals had broken into her home. She had been in bed at the time. It was the middle of the night, and they both attacked her. And they attacked her in the worst way you can attack a woman. The worst way a male can attack a woman, if you know what I mean. The word begins with an R. They did that to her multiple times. And she was in her late 80s. I mean, these individuals were just evil. And then they basically hit her so many times that caused her physical passing. And so in the morning, when her sister-in-law came with breakfast and let herself in the house, as she did just about every morning, because the other old lady, she was having some difficulties at that point taking care of herself. And her sister-in-law was a little bit younger by about 10 years or so she was still pretty spry. And she'd go and bring her food and stuff. And my mom would send food over for her. And back then, neighbors took care of neighbors. These days, no one gives a shit. Anyway, at least not where I live. So she comes in and she finds this horrendous scene and, obviously calls the police. And so on from there. Well, they figured out who did it. And it was that boy that my dog always hated. Him and an older cousin of his had broken into that house with the intention of robbing her. But obviously, these guys were really twisted. And so what happened was, the end result is that both of them, well, the older boy was like 17 or 18 already. So he was automatically going to get tried as an adult. They were going to try the younger kid as a juvenile because he was like 14 or 15 at the time of the crime. He ended up being tried as an adult because the crime was so heinous. And they both received life sentences. So they're both, if they're still alive, they're in Joliet Prison in Illinois. But that's the time my dog Desiree took an intense dislike to one particular person. She never warmed up to this kid at all. Always hated him from the get-go. And my mom always told me growing up, if you ever have an animal who really dislikes someone, it's because there's something wrong with that person. There's something really, really bad about their energy, and animals can sense this. Maybe they can see it. I don't know. So to this day, whenever a pet of mine doesn't like someone, oh man, I pay attention, and I take steps to be sure I distance myself from that person. I don't care who they are, in relation to me. I just know if my dog, my cat doesn't like you, my cat is like a little dog. She's very outgoing. That cat loves everyone. She'll come running right up to visitors. If she doesn't come running right up to someone, I'll know there's something wrong with that person. She has yet to react that way to anybody. And my current dog too likes everybody. But, so word to the wise. If your pet doesn't like someone, they've got a damn good reason. Pay attention. I hope you enjoyed today's true tale of the paranormal. Not so much paranormal as it is maybe animals just being more in tune with people's energies than we are, But still, it was an interesting experience for me considering what that child ended up doing. So I thank you all for watching. And so that is why the topic of this, I had to post a little trigger warning at the beginning, because the last thing I want to do is trigger anyone and greatly upset someone who may have had that horrible experience themselves. So thank you for being here and for subscribing, for liking my videos, for commenting. I appreciate y'all so much. And this is Nefer Kefri, your hostess with the Ghostess, wishing you a blessed week ahead. And you've been watching True Tales of the Paranormal. Follow me at my other 2 channels and across my social media.